My name is Alison Blair, and I'm from Reno, Nevada. I go to school there. I go to the University of Reno, Nevada, and I am a double major in anthropology and English. So I knew I wanted to come here, and so I started searching for Irish field schools, and I stumbled upon the RFR website, and I found the two excavations here. And it took me a while to decide between the two, but ultimately I picked this one because I felt it was more organized and it lended to my sensibilities better. And then once I'd chosen to come to here, I had to go through the application process. So there's a lot of lengthy essay questions that we had to answer, partly about why we chose that one, what we're hoping to learn, and our own kind of background. And then after I submitted that, probably about a week later, I got an acceptance, and from that point, it was trying to figure out what to pack and things like that. And I left on the 20th of June, and I flew over here and arrived the Sunday afterwards, and then took the bus in to here, and I've been here ever since. One of the coolest things that we found, it sounds like something from a movie, but they were measuring the length of the hallway versus the length of the rooms, and we discovered that there was a discrepancy, that there was part of the rooms that were missing. And so we noticed, we've known all along that there was a blocked up doorway in the hallway, but we just assumed that the wall had been knocked out and that it had been formed into another room, because that had happened several times in the rest of the cells, but it hadn't. It'd just been blocked up. And so what we did was we unblocked that door, and we discovered this hallway that would have been kind of an antechamber to the cells. So when they were originally building the second part of the punishment block, they were building those antechambers, and the goal was to isolate the convicts as much as possible from light, from sound, from everything. But eventually they decided that those antechambers were not a good idea, because it didn't allow the guards to check in on the prisoners as often. It was more difficult, and they wanted what we call a panopticum, so they can see everyone and they can constantly watch them. And so those antechambers were blocked up. And what we have is a preserved antechamber, which we've opened up. The whitewash is still on the walls. The rest of the punishment block, all the whitewash was stripped off in the 1980s by sandblasting, and so it's a miraculous find. I mean, it sounds like something from a movie, but it actually happened, I swear. The idea of those isolation cells was to essentially block the prisoner off from all light, all sound, all sensory input. So you would have been in this small dark room with at most a tiny window, and it would have been completely disoriented. At most they would keep you for 3 weeks, a month in there, and so you're just in this single room, and you're all by yourself, and you're left to your thoughts. Not only were you malnourished, but you're in these tiny little cells and you're going crazy. And then after your time in the solitary cells, what they would do to kind of torture you mentally is they would take the prisoner out and they'd throw them directly out into the yard with the other prisoners. And because they were malnourished, particularly because they were malnourished they didn't have enough vitamin A, you get this thing called snow blindness. So you've been in the dark for so long and you don't have enough vitamin A, which is part of your optics. The whole world goes white, and it stays white for an incredibly long time. And so the other prisoners are watching you go through this agony of stumbling around. You can't see anything, and the idea is that it's incredibly humiliating, and it's meant to deter the prisoners who were in there from ever doing something that would land them in there again, and also to deter the prisoners who are watching the person go through that agony from ever trying to do anything that would get them into the punishment cells. Every day we all meet in the lab downstairs before we start work, and Barra tells us a story of one of the prisoners who was here. And some of them are really sad, and then some of them have some hope to them. Most of the stories that we get told involve people who have died on the island, because our records are kind of scatty, and most of the records that we have are about the deaths rather than the people who were transported and things like that. But for instance, we've had 2 stories about 12-year-old boys who were imprisoned here and eventually died here. And the idea of telling those stories in the morning is we go out and we excavate the graves or we excavate the cells where they would have stayed, and we're thinking about those people. There's a human aspect to it. We're not just picking up dirt and tossing it in buckets and stuff like that, especially for the people who are down in the graveyard and who are dealing with the actual remains. It was a person, whatever we're working on. It was a person, and we have to remember that and treat it with respect.